Welcome to the first episode of our Metalepsis series, everyone, and the first episode that marks the end of our 6th year doing the show and the beginning of our 7th year. This series, we had the pleasure of talking with Dillin Apelyan, the brand new host of the One Shot podcast and designer of this very game. But before we get to today's episode, here's what to expect in the calls to action.
Join us after the show, as always, for our thoughts on the episode, a brief bit about our anniversary this month, and normal show closer stuff, including thanking our patrons.
With all of that out of the way, enjoy the show, everybody. Welcome to Character Creation Cast, a show where we discuss and create characters, the best part of role-playing games, with guests using their favorite systems. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan, and this episode, my co-host Amelia and I are excited to welcome Dillin Apelyan, brand new host of the One Shot podcast, to talk about their game, Metalepsis, a 2-player narrative RPG with one GM, the author of the story, and one player, the protagonist, as they fight for control over the protagonist's fate.
Dillin, welcome to Character Creation Cast. I'm really excited that you get to be here, especially after your fancy new debut as the official host.
Oh my God. No, thank you so much for having me. Everybody on the network in as a whole has been so nice and so sweet. And so I'm just I'm really thrilled.
It's such a good group of people. It's amazing.
It really is. I'm learning that it's really an elite crew.
The best of the best.
Yeah.
Could you tell us who you are, your pronouns, what sort of things you're doing, where people can find you online in this increasingly diverse landscape that is not Twitter?
Yeah. I'll tell you about it. So yes, I am Dillin. My pronouns are she, he, and they, and I am super Dillin everywhere that you could possibly find me. I am a monster about it. I will claim my username on every single new social media that comes up.
As you
I don't
should.
use half of them, but I have claimed,
I don't use most of them,
claim.
but I will stake my claim. I will put my flag in it.
Yep.
But primarily, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram are like the places you can find me the most often. As Super Dillin, you can find me as host of One Shot, which is my new homestead, and I'm just loving it. I have so much joy making this show. And you can also find me on Patchwork Productions or The Atomless, which is my other home.
Wonderful. Well, let's go ahead and get into this, and we're going to start by discussing what this game is all about.
What's in a game?
Oh my God, let's, please.
Yes.
So what is the core concept of Metalepsis?
Sure. So Metalepsis is a game that's inviting you to tell a story about authorial intent and agency. And what it's really inspired by is a very common phenomenon. I don't know if either of you have ever written anything. But it is like a very common phenomenon talked about, wherein as you're telling a story, even I've heard people talk about it in terms of their RPG characters as well, where you no longer feel like you're inventing what's happening. It's just there's a living, alive person and they're telling you what they are doing. And it's sort of inspired by that, sort of inspired by a very famous, very favorite moment from a comic book series that I really like. That is sort of like a fourth wall break in the Amory Wars series, which I talk about in the game as well. And so it's a little inspired by that, but mostly it is about this sort of feeling of when the story becomes so real to you that it might as well be alive.
Absolutely. No, I experienced that once while I was trying to write an audio drama. And like, what are you doing, characters? That's not what I had planned from the beginning. Why is this off the rails?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's an interesting experience.
It is. And it's always strange to me that it is so common, that you hear so many writers talk about it, because it feels like this really, it's like, okay, but like, they're not really, like, you're the one in charge, you're writing it. So what do you mean you don't have control over it? But like,
right, they only exist in
so
your
many
head.
writers will tell you that that's the experience that they've had. And it's just, it's bananas to me. Honestly, I don't fully understand it.
It's very banana splits. Yeah. But it happens. And then once you acknowledge that it happens, how much are you acknowledging that? Are you laughing off this idea that this person is real? Or is there a feeling that, like, because they feel so real to you, you begin to care about what happens to them in a new way? Because if they're real, then you're the one responsible for hurting them. And you need to deal with that. You need to come to terms with that a little bit.
That's why you only write cozy fiction that has no stakes.
Right?
Yeah. And then
that's why we only create the characters, right? We never do anything past that.
I know.
Right. Yeah, so you avoid all accountability.
We set up the
Problem solved.
Problem solved. I think also part of this is that then on the protagonist side, so this is a 2-player, so that's what the author's going through, is this like journey of losing control over your story and discovering the autonomy of this person that you've invented. But from the protagonist's story, it's sort of almost like how do you confront God? Like, how could you possibly tell God to stop doing what they are doing to you? And how would you plead your case if you had a chance? And how do you come to terms with the fact that you were an invention? Everything that you've experienced has been real and full and alive. And then somehow you learn that it's all someone else's invention. So there is a little bit of a religious subtext to this, in a way.
That's amazing.
So talk to us about like the setting of this game. Like, how does this work if you're, the author and the protagonist in a story? What kind of setting are we using? Are we creating our own? What elements are important in that sort of dynamic?
So yeah, in the preamble part of this game, the 2 players who would play this story are going to create together the genre of the story that they're in, and what kind of a medium it is. So I use a lot of terms that refer to the characters as the protagonist and the writer, the author, but that's not necessarily what it needs to be. It can be, I've played this game with an RPG character and the player controlling them, a TV show and the showrunner, a screenplay, and the writer. So it can be those kinds of types of stories as well. And then all it is that you have a main character, a character from this story who is confronting the person who is in charge of the story. That's all that really matters.
Very cool. So what do we need then to actually play the game? What sort of tools and materials do we need?
You need your imagination. Yeah, I mean, the game is played with a deck of cards, but the character creation part is really just going through and moving through a series of prompts together.
Very cool.
I did give some option to randomize, but that's, I think it's more fun to bring some intention to it instead.
Or both. One of the things that Amelia and I love on the show are random tables.
Oh, for sure.
So we might have to roll on at least one of them.
Okay, great.
We'll see
I
where
have
we
my
go
dice
from
at the ready.
here.
I know.
I saw you grab them, and I was like, "Oh boy,
Oh boy.
oh boy, what are we doing?" So you touched on it a little bit, but I want to ask more in depth. Like, what kind of stories and themes were you hoping people would explore with this game, and that you wanted to explore when you were writing it?
Yeah. I wanted to explore, the ego death and terror of recognizing your own limitations, your own autonomous limitations. I wanted people to explore the fight for your autonomy. And I wanted people to explore the kind of farce of authorial intent and how your story lives without you.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been talking a little bit about like on this like very basic level recently with my kids, because like I just had to do conferences with my 5th grader and they had to like present stuff, and they were getting really upset about this, like having to understand the greater meaning of every book that they've read, and being like, what if it's just a book? And like, so we've had some conversations about some of that, like the way that things are like, sometimes it's just a story, and sometimes there is this bigger, deeper meaning to things, and the way we choose to tell stories and all of that kind of stuff too.
Really interesting, like thinking about books from both directions, because like you could ask an author, what did you mean by this? And their answer could easily be, I thought it was an interesting conversation between these characters.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and a lot
Meanwhile,
of times that's
you've got
like, you see interviews too. Like I've seen several with
Yeah.
like, Neil Gaiman and stuff, and people are like, did you mean for this to mean this thing? And he's like, I meant it because it sounded cool. And
Right.
it was kind of
Gotta love him though. I love that he rolls with all the punches we throw at him. He's really he's really so good at accepting what we take
Like,
away from
means
his
this, and
fiction,
he's
which
like,
is very
sure.
nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's like, wow, I didn't see that, but great.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
I do love that.
Yeah, I like the idea of like playing that out though and trying to figure out, like,
Yeah.
I was like, who is making those decisions then too? Like where are those decisions coming from? What are they leading to? And why?
Yeah. Whether subconsciously done or not. Absolutely. So what do we do as characters then in this game? What's the dynamic like as we're playing?
So it's always meant, the game does probe you to be a little bit antagonistic towards one another in different ways. The author, because your goal for this story is to make it dramatic and good and entertaining, which is usually going to mean that your protagonist is going to suffer or lose things. Even if they ultimately succeed in the end, they will do so after having suffered so much. And that makes a great story. But the protagonist is not thrilled, would not love that, would love actually for things to work out better. And finding out that someone did these things to you by choice would not probably endear you to that person quite so much. So I think that there is an intent for the story to at least begin with these two people being opposed to each other. Doesn't mean that it needs to stay that way through each act, but it is the starting point that we're in.
No, that think about it and it's like great stories always have conflict. And then I look at my life and I'm like, I would be okay if this was not a great story.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean,
like,
well,
I would
that's
be okay
just the
if this was a
thing.
pretty boring, you know.
Well, that's also the thing too, is that life doesn't make narrative sense.
No.
Life is just randomized events. You can't tell a story with that, and you shouldn't. And that's also why these stories are so hard hitting when they do happen, because it is so much more dramatic, so much more satisfying to read a story this way. But if you actually were to put yourself into your favorite protagonist's shoes, you would probably be like, hey, what the hell?
Why? Please no.
Why?
Why all those memes that are like, if you had to survive in the last book you read, and I'm always like, no.
No.
Yeah.
I would get sad and hide under a rock and be like, all these people that are like, I'm going to solve this problem. I'm like, I would not.
Yeah.
I would go back to bed.
Yeah, exactly. Like, to be the chosen one. How dramatic, how delicious. I don't want to be the chosen one. That's horrible.
Absolutely not.
It's all on my shoulders. Are you kidding?
That's too much pressure.
We can't have a collective responsibility to fix this situation.
I don't even answer unknown numbers. I can't save the world.
Good Lord, please.
I still have to pay for my short sword.
Yeah,
it's not even paid off yet.
I know. That's how I feel.
It all comes back to the pains of capitalism.
Yep, that's true.
It always does.
Yep.
It does.
So, what do you think is unique about this game? Like, what, in particular, when we have designers on, I always want to know, like, what made you feel like this was a game that you needed to put into the world?
Oh, well, I can answer that for sure, because it's fitting with the theme of the game itself. I made this game because it spoke to me, and it was just like, you have to make me put these words on paper and make it and release it. I had no say in the matter. I had no control over it.
Very meta.
Yeah, I just made it. In fact, so this is the second release of this game, because the first time I released it, I wrote a very abridged version of this game. It was about, I think, in total 5 pages long. It was extremely abridged. It was extremely rushed. And it was just like it just felt that way. It felt like the game idea, the concept was burning a hole in my mind. And if I didn't put it on paper and put it out into the world, I would die. So I just did that. And I called it, so I had mentioned earlier that it was partially inspired by a line, a moment from a comic book series. And I originally named the game after that moment, which is How Does That Work? You're a Bicycle. Which is, it's one gorgeous panel from this comic book, which I'm going to tell you about now. It's a comic book series that accompanies the music of Coheed and Cambria. I'm obsessed. I have no other thoughts in my head except for this band and everything that they do. And this sci-fi epic that they've been writing, that the front runner of this band, Claudio, has been writing for a decade now. No, 2 decades.
We're
2 decades
I'm so
now.
sorry to tell you this, but yeah.
Woof. Okay. So for 2 decades, he's been writing this sci-fi epic that all of their music accompanies. And in one of the comics, he wrote about something that was happening to him, the author of this story, where he had started to base so many characters in this story around people from his real life. And then over time, his relationships with those people in real life end or change significantly. And he was in real life struggling with how to move forward with them as characters in this story. Now that was fractured. Do you keep, like he unabashedly has a self-insert character in this series, literally is named after him and is based off of his own life from as a teenager.
Yeah.
And he wrote a former girlfriend into the story, a girlfriend who then later went on to break his heart. So what do you do with this character now? Do you keep writing your fictional self as in love with them, even though like it hurts to do so and is, a reminder of this thing? Do you kill off the character? And he's going through this. He writes this into the story. He writes this fourth wall break where the writer is having this difficulty in discerning reality from fiction because of exactly this. And how that manifests in the comic is that a demon-possessed flaming 10-speed bicycle appears to him and starts telling him what he should do with the characters. And he has this argument with this demon bicycle and is telling the demon bicycle that he loves this character and he doesn't want to get rid of her. And the bicycle tells him in so many ways, love has brought you so much pain. I say you kill the character off. And the iconic panel is just like this image of him talking to this flaming bicycle. And he says, yeah, and you say a lot of things. And how does that work? You're a bicycle. And decides to take his authorial intent and do what he planned to do anyway, regardless of the input from this vision that he's having. And so that's what I named the game initially, is
Amazing.
After that one line. Completely unsellable. totally bad.
The SEO on that was not amazing.
But the thing is that I didn't have a choice in the matter. My brain was screaming at me to make this game the way that it was. And then later, when I realized after playing it several times how much I actually loved the game, that I needed to go back and give it some care and due process and like
polish up that bicycle.
Exactly. And give it a name that wasn't absurd. And I did all that.
I really love that. Like that's it's such a big question, like especially when you're writing autobiographically too. Like where does that split between real life and fiction occur?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the part where we generally talk about the history of the game, and it sounds like we've got a good idea of why the game was made. When did this first start getting developed?
Sure. Wow, what a great question that I should know the answer to. How splendid.
Let me look back at the dates on my saved files.
I'm not doing
ready for the hard-hitting questions, Dylan.
Nothing at all. Okay, so about 9 months ago is when I made the first iteration of this game and released it. And then so that's actually very funny. So 9 months ago, I make and release this game. Somewhere just after that, I played this game. So while I was making it, I did play it a couple of times with some friends in an offline capacity. And it was a beautiful experience each time. Then I played this game about a month or so after I released it with my friend Jay, who is Nala Wu on social media, who is just an absolute banger of a person, just so great in every way. They are great. Talented artist, talented collaborator, I could scream and scream about how wonderful they are in every way. And so I played this game with them on a stream, and that was about roughly, let's say, 8 months ago. We have been so inspired by the fake story, because you also, in playing this game, you create like a fake novel series, or like, a fake story along with the story of these characters. There is like an invention that gets made. And we have been talking about it every single day for the last 8 months.
Wow.
There's art. We have invented,
Amazing.
we have written prose, and there's a meme channel. We have invented and thought about how the Tumblr fans would be about the story. We have been so obsessed, and part of this I can't discount. I can't take credit for it really, is just because Jay is such a giving and imaginative person to work with, that they just are an endless fountain of inspiration. But I do think that was the thing that made me say to myself, okay, this game can like really be a foundation for something really special. I need to go back to the drawing board and make it as good as it has been to me. And so that is kind of where we're at. So I just re-released it in its full version. What, about 2-3 weeks ago?
What is
and
time?
Now I am working with my beloveds over at Plus One Experience to get it made in print.
Oh, cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. It's like you're tapping into an alternate reality meta narrative about this work.
Yes. The game
That's really
itself is a game that I'm playing where I am, at its whim is kind of how it goes.
It's so good.
Our last question before we dive in and make characters.
Okay.
Are there any basic terms or concepts you think we need to know ahead of time? Otherwise, often it just kind of comes up as we go. But if there's any big things you think people need to know to follow along?
So I think one important one is Metalepsis, which is the name of the game, which is a phenomenon, the deliberate transgression between the world of the telling and the world of the told. That is what that word means, and it is what the vibe of this game is. I think then the terminology is of this game is very much revolves around play structure. So there are acts and there are scenes. And then I would say some of the other things is that this is a what you might call a GM-less game. The author, one of you is called the author, but that does not mean that the author is in charge of what's happening at the table. So I would deconstruct that urge when playing this. I do talk about in the game different ways of role playing when you're outside of the structure of having a GM and players kind of relationship. There are two main ways that I have found I feel comfortable in, which one of them is the storyboarding kind of role playing where you're just hey, I think this should happen. Does that feel right to you? Yeah. What, and then what if it's like this? And then what if we go this way? Does that feel good? Yeah. I think she would say this, and that that kind of discussion. And then the other is the Let's Play Mermaids way, where which is where I live, where you are just in it playing make-believe and playing your characters. And then when a decision comes up, you sort of break and you're like, hey, what if wouldn't it be cool if King Triton took my tail away and you had to go and find him and give him a sea star to get him to give it back to me? And the other person's like, yeah, that sounds great. And then you go back into the play. So
it's much more the way children play. Definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
I love to listen to my kids do that kind of stuff, because it's I have it written down somewhere. At one point they were we're playing kitties, and then one of goes, we're celebrating all the holidays, and then they just
amazing.
Okay,
amazing.
This sounds great. Exactly. Let's celebrate all the holidays. Okay,
might as well.
While we're here.
Love that. Love kitty cats celebrating all of the holidays. Just simply delicious. So yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like we're ready to get into it. Should we make some people?
Let's make some people.
Let's make some people.
Let's make some people.
Let's make some people.
All right.
What do we need to do first to get started, Dylan?
Sure. So I was thinking, because there's 3 of us and this is a 2-player game.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
I was thinking I would walk you 2 through this and you 2 would make your characters. Does that sound right?
Does.
Okay.
Feel free to join in on the setting creation, though.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm
Please
going
throw
to
out
walk you through
Any
it. Yeah.
ideas that you have or any input from you, we would
Yes.
love.
So,
Mhm.
okay. All right. So in our preamble, the very first thing that we need to do is we need to decide generally what the genre of story this is. So at its most basic, is this a romance, an adventure, a fantasy, mystery, horror, dystopia, sci-fi, or some kind of combination of the 2? Do either of you have any inclinations off the bat?
Ryan's rolling dice, so
I rolled 2 8s.
okay. What is that? Is there,
Okay, so we're going to do a combination
is there
then.
a table somewhere that I'm looking at here?
There is a table. It's
Oh, okay. I found it. I got it.
Yep.
Okay. I was like, I haven't
so
scrolled that far yet to find any tables, and you're already rolling dice.
So I think
I
that-
am delighted by the
Weird.
combo concept, though.
yes, the combination is what we're going to go with because you did roll the 8s.
Okay.
Yes.
So now I'm going to roll
Okay, good.
because you already did it, and now it's my turn.
Yes.
see
Absolutely.
if I
Roll
can-
those dice.
Yeah, I got to find some 8s.
I know.
I got a lot of 10s.
If only we had custom D8s.
Found 2.
There you go.
One of them is one of the Witcher dice, but that's okay. All right. Oh no, that one's at 8. I'm gonna roll that again.
3 8s.
I got a 3, which is fantasy, and a 7, which
Fantasy.
is science fiction.
Ooh,
Science
sci-fi
fiction
fantasy. Oh my
Alright.
God,
Yes.
space wizards.
Space magic.
Space wizards,
magic.
baby. I love
Alright.
space wizards.
Here we go.
Hell yeah.
Here we go.
Amazing. Perfect. Okay, so we've got sci-fi fantasy. Then we decide what the medium, the kind of story we're telling. Is this going to be, and feel free to jump out if you have a thought or if you want to randomize, it's totally fine. But do you want to be like an author writing a story? Do you want to be a play and it's playwright, TV show and showrunner?
Do you have
there's
a
no limit.
preference, Ryan? I feel like rolling again because I don't know that
I
like.
don't have a preference either. I wouldn't mind rolling
Okay.
on this one and see
All
what's
right.
going on.
Why don't you roll then?
All right, I'll roll. Get my rainbow dice. 4. RPG character and player.
That makes sense.
Fun.
It makes a lot of
That
sense.
makes sense.
Like that. Okay, so now here's the thing. Who wants to be who? Who wants to make the character and who wants to be the player?
I say we do evens or odds, right?
Yeah.
So like evens, I'll be the player. Odds, you'll be the player. Okay. And then we make Dylan flip a coin or roll a die or something
Oh,
to
okay.
decide this.
I was like, he makes Dylan do what? What am I doing?
What does Dylan have to do?
What do I do?
Yeah.
Okay. So evens. So shout out again. Who's evens and who's odds?
I'll be evens to be the player.
Mhm.
Okay.
You're traditionally odds, but that's okay.
Oh, okay. I can be odds. That if that
That's
makes me
fine.
feel better. I like being odds. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every time we've had to decide between the
I pick
two of
odds.
us, you have
That's-
always
So
That
been
you're
does
odds.
sound
odds?
like me. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So if it's odds, I'll be the player.
It is a 19, which is an odd.
All right. So I'm the player.
Ooh.
You are.
Okay.
You're the character.
I will be the character. Sure,
All
certainly.
right. Why not?
Call to action.
Yeah, like that. I really enjoyed I mean the entire concept of this game was super interesting.
So good.
I really enjoyed the mechanics too. Like I know going into it I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this is interesting, but I don't know how it'll play out because it feels like it might be kind of awkward and,
Mhm.
I mean, so much of it is just conversational, really.
Yeah.
But it was such a cool concept, and I really liked getting to talk to Dillin about that, that struggle between author and character. I thought that was a really fun sort of philosophical discussion that we got to have here too.
Yeah, exactly. I really liked Dillin's approach of how this game got made or why it got made as well. It was plaguing my brain. It needed to come out, and that's what happened.
Yep, I couldn't keep it inside anymore.
And you know what? It was fun. So I made it into a fully refined game, and it definitely shows. It's fantastic. I loved like the questionnaire that we got through.
Yeah.
On there, and I don't think we got to it yet in this episode, so a sneak peek for next episode of the fun stuff that this game has going for it. But like, I really enjoyed what comes out of this. It feels like a fanfic creation engine, effectively.
I mean, I feel like you could say that about any RPG, but sure.
Fair. I mean, but like it's specifically creating a like fictitious property or like campaign that you're supposed to be in the middle of, right?
Right.
So it gets your brain into that thought of like, well, what came before and what's coming next. It kind of puts yourself into that author role, which is really interesting. So like, yeah, I love this series. The episodes are a lot shorter. We had a bit of a time crunch. I would have loved to make multiple groups of people like we did for Starcrossed, of course. But like Dillin is extraordinarily busy, as you can expect. And we were absolutely delighted that we were able to book some time.
I feel like we still got a lot out of it too, even though it was a fairly short recording for us. I feel like what we got was good. Quality content.
Exactly. Yeah, so you're in for a wonderful treat this series, I think. It is our 6-year anniversary, though. Basically tomorrow for when our first series released. Yeah. It's been a wild ride. I know last year we'd had a big Patreon drive, a whole to do for our 5-year. I was hoping to do something similar this year, but like, with everything going on since the start of the year.
No, and we'd have to like think of new, benefits to put out. And, like I haven't thought of anything. And, I don't know that either of us has it in us right now to like coordinate all of the logistics of something like that too. So maybe at some point, I'd love to do another Patreon drive. I loved the dice and stuff that we did last time. And the stickers and all that kind of stuff.
It'd be nice to give some extra rewards to our patrons and our supportors and stuff.
Yeah, especially because given all of that, like life has been just really kicking our butts lately. So we haven't, been able to do as much like chit chats and stuff like that too. We're hoping to get back on track. It's funny because like we got ourselves in a really good spot with our series recordings where we weren't like scrambling. We've got stuff scheduled for a couple months out, and then the day-to-day life was like, no.
Yep.
No.
No thanks.
No, we're busy. Sorry about that. So
I mean, it's effectively a spiritual successor to last year of, hey, if you can support us, throw some money at our Patreon and get some cool dice, get some, the standard thank you cards. Like we've got a whole slew of exclusive stickers. I mean, like it's a lot of good stuff.
I also love that you read my bullet point here. You just like went through.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, I'm purple, Ryan.
I didn't even get to that point.
Following along, but you're just saying everything that's in this next bullet point.
Off the cuff.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So I will read the official statement because like Ryan just kept rambling. Like, I don't know where you even. Okay.
I just kept rambling like, okay, yeah, that's fine.
You typed up the notes.
I typed them up yesterday. I did. Okay. I apologize.
Unfortunately, life has been rough for both of us so far this year. So we don't have the spoons to do a month-long celebration and Patreon drive like last year. But we're still around and still in need of your assistance if you're able to. Oh, Ryan. If you head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/charactercreationcast, you can sign up for any of our basic tiers as a free trial and check out all of the non-physical rewards at that level for free. for 7 days. Each
That's
level
the
has
new
a
thing,
ton
isn't
of
it?
great rewards associated with it. But I do especially love the $10 tier, which gives you a new exclusive sticker every month, along with a bunch of other great rewards.
Yes, so I forgot that I wrote that. But also, that is the new thing is we now have set the first 3 tiers for free trials. So if you want to just get in there and take a look at all the non-physical rewards that you get access at those tiers, feel free. There's not too terribly much different between some of those tiers, but like, why not?
Yeah, go for it. Try it out.
Why not? It's fun. And no commitment after 7 days or before 7 days are up. If you feel, well, I don't need these physical rewards, you can always drop out. That's fine. But if you stick around, you get some cool stuff.
But you're missing out on dice and stickers, so that's on you.
Yeah. And those dice are pretty sweet. I got a whole bag of them right here, and I look at them every day.
I know, I've still got a bunch in my closet.
Want to give these out to people.
I do.
And we got so many people that we can give these dice to. So
I know, I just mailed out our
absolutely
recent batch of stickers. 10 stickers.
10 different sticker designs.
Yep.
Already. We've almost been doing this for, gosh, we did start this at the Patreon drive basically last year.
I don't know if we started
I
the
believe
stickers.
the concept of the
Yes.
sticker club started during that month.
Yeah. And so we've been doing them monthly. They get roughly mailed out kind of quarterly because it's nice to be able to order them in batches. But you do get one per month, usually based on the episode for that month, but sometimes just fun, silly things that I wanted to do.
Exactly.
So
yeah. And pretty much all of the designs are done by Amelia, which is fantastic. We've got custom thank you cards, handcrafted by Amelia.
Yeah, when you join the
$5 and up.
Patreon. I know for the stickers, I was doing handmade ones too. This last month, I did not have time. So everyone who was part of our sticker club, you're welcome. I used my flamingo stationery on you. So I even sealed the envelopes with little flamingo stickers. So
Oh, that's lovely. I feel like I should sign up just to get those.
I keep meaning to send you an envelope, but then I'd have to look at your address and everything. I have the Patreon stuff in front of me and I keep being I should just send you an envelope of them every month, but then I forget. So we should keep doing this though. Read the notes that we actually have.
I know, exactly. Well, in addition to all of that stuff that we just talked about, we also like to thank all of our patrons personally every single episode, which is what we are going to do right now, starting with
Lieutenant and DJG, aka Tigranosaurus. We're really glad to have you with us. Thank you.
We appreciate your support. Eric Bonds and Daryl Holiday II, thank you.
Shadim Cabal and the Shyest Barbarian, thank you. We're so grateful to have you with us.
Benjamin Sweeney and Lorcan McInnes, you're the best. Thank you.
We're glad to have Rob Fletcher and Kevin Brown. Thank you for supporting us.
Tentacle Duck and Cole McCallum, we appreciate your support. Thank you so much.
John Adamus and Victor's virtuoso Visunia violinist, viciously violating vexed Victorians, very virtuous violins. Thanks for supporting our dreams.
Amazing. We're running out of letters.
I know.
I'm very curious what's going to happen after that.
I'm worried about X, honestly.
I know. Good luck with that one, E3. We appreciate your support, Carlos Salazar and Eric Hess. Thank you.
Ian Popmeyer and Sorogoth, thanks for supporting us.
Liam G. and Brian Colm, thank you so much.
Garden GM and Tanglefoot, thank you for making all of this happen.
Blue Kryptonite and Danny, you are the best. Thank you.
Nicole Trainer and Liam Murray, you rock. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Kenning and Brian Kurtz. We couldn't do this without you.
Mark E. Fair and Drew Owen, our deepest thanks.
And thank you to all of our future patrons. Your support is helping keep the lights on for the show. We are currently barely breaking even and could really use your help. So if you want to help us out at all, this is the absolute best way to do so, which will allow us to do even more for you in the future. If you are already supporting the Patreon or can't afford to do so right now and still want to show your support for the show, the next best way is to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Podcast Addict, or even Facebook. We'll read your review right here and thank you personally the episode after we get the review. So if you get it in now, you'll be at the top of the pile because we do not have any reviews right now.
No, bummer. They trailed off. It's sad.
I know. Mm-hmm.
That is all we have for today's episode. Join us next week for the exciting conclusion to our character creation portion of the series for Metalepsis. Until then, take care, stay safe, drink some water, maybe wish on a shooting star, and keep making those amazing people. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us for part 1 of this character creation series. We'll be back in part 2, picking up right where we left off.
Character Creation Cast is a production of the One Shot Podcast Network and can be found online at www.charactercreationcast.com. Head to the website to get more information on our hosts, this show, and even our press kit. Character Creation Cast can also be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at CreationCast, or on our Discord server at discord.charactercreationcast.com. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Bolter, and I can be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at Lord Neptune or online at lordneptune.com. Our other host, Amelia Antrim, can be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at Ginger Reckoning. Music for this episode is used with a Creative Commons license or with permission from the podcast they originated from. Further information can be found within the show notes. Our main theme music is Hero Remix by Steve Combs and is used with a Creative Commons license. This podcast is owned by us under Creative Commons. This episode was edited by Ryan Bolter. Further information for the game systems used and today's guests can also be found in the show notes. If you'd like to support our show, find us on Patreon. Get access to bonus episodes, exclusive merch, and much more at patreon.com/charactercreationcast. Thanks for joining us. And remember, we find that the best part of any role-playing game is character creation. So go out there and create some amazing people. We'll see you next time.